There is a village at the top of the world where the snow never fully leaves. Even in summer, the mountains keep their white caps like old men who refuse to change. The people there are hardy and warm-blooded, and kind in the way that people become kind when the cold is always watching. It was in this village, on the coldest night of the coldest winter in 40 years, that a girl was born. The midwife wrapped her in wool and handed her to her mother and said 3 things. She breathes, she is healthy, and she is cold. Not sick cold, not shivering cold, just cold. Like someone had folded a piece of winter sky into the shape of a child and set her down among the living. They named her Eira. It means snow. Of course it does. Eira grew up the way quiet things grow, slowly, carefully, always slightly apart from the rest. While the other children ran and tumbled and warmed themselves against each other, Eira watched from the edges. Not because she was unfriendly, not because she didn't want to join, but because she had learned early that her presence changed the temperature of a room, and not everyone was comfortable with that. Her breath came out in clouds, even indoors. Her fingers left frost on window panes. In the market, the fish she touched stayed fresh longest. The bread she carried home was always cold by the time she arrived, no matter how warm it started. The villagers had long stopped trying to explain her. She was simply Eira, the cold girl, the quiet one, the one who smiled from a distance and kept her hands in her pockets and never quite melted into the warmth of a crowd. Her mother, Marin, loved her fiercely and completely, the way mothers love things they don't fully understand. She kept extra blankets on Eira's bed, even though Eira never complained of being cold. She left warm soup on the stove every evening, even though Eira's bowl was always cold before she finished it. Love, Marin had decided, was something you did even when you didn't have all the answers. Eira watched the village from her bedroom window each night. The warm squares of yellow light in every house, the smoke rising from every chimney, and felt the particular loneliness of someone standing just outside a warmth they cannot enter. She was 17 years old, and she had never let anyone truly close. There was a reason for that. Eira discovered the secret when she was 9 years old. Her father had come home from a long journey, 3 months away, trading goods across the southern pass, and when he walked through the door and saw her standing there, taller than he remembered, his face had done something complicated and beautiful. He had crossed the room in 3 strides and held her so tightly she could feel his heartbeat. "I missed you," he had said into her hair. "I love you so much, little snow." And something had happened. She had felt it begin in her chest, a deep, crystallizing cold, spreading outward like cracks in a frozen lake. By the time he let go of her, the tips of her fingers had gone translucent. A faint frost crept along her collarbone like lace. Her father hadn't noticed, but Eira had looked down at her hands and understood, with the quiet certainty of a child encountering something true, that something was very wrong with her. Over the years, she mapped it carefully. Not all affection triggered it. Kindness barely registered. Fondness was manageable. But love, real love, the kind that came from the deepest part of a person, that was the thing. The deeper the love, the faster the cold came. The longer someone held it, the further the frost spread. She had done the math at 15. If someone loved her completely, without reservation, for long enough, she was certain she would freeze entirely, become something still and silent and unreachable. So she had built her life around a careful architecture of almost close, almost warm, almost there. She let people like her. She never let them love her. It was a lonely way to live, but it was living. He arrived on the Tuesday in late autumn, when the first real snow of the season was just beginning to fall. His name was Soren. He was 20 years old, traveling south from the northern ranges with a cartload of carved wood and an easy laugh that seemed entirely out of place on a road this cold and this empty. His cart had lost a wheel just outside the village. A clean break, the kind that needed a proper carpenter's attention, and so he found himself stranded in Eira's village for at least a day, possibly two. Eira met him at the market the next morning when his temporary cart, a borrowed thing, lopsided and stubborn, tipped sideways on the icy lane and sent a crate of apples rolling in every direction. Most people stepped aside. Eira bent down and started picking them up. He watched her hands. He saw the frost that formed on each apple she touched, the faint shimmer of ice that appeared and disappeared in seconds. He didn't recoil. He didn't stare with alarm. He simply tilted his head, the way a person does when they've noticed something interesting. He took one of the frost-covered apples from her, turned it over in his palm, and bit into it. "It's better cold," he said. "I've been walking since before sunrise." Eira stared at him. She had been waiting for the flinch. Everyone flinched eventually, and it hadn't come. He introduced himself. She told him her name. He said, "Eira. That means snow, doesn't it?" And he smiled like this was exactly right, like it was the most sensible name in the world, and went back to collecting his apples without another word about it. She helped him right the cart. They talked until the lane was clear, about the northern ranges, about the road south, about the way snow sounds different depending on how deep it is. He spoke the way people speak when they've spent a lot of time alone and are genuinely glad to have company. Not performing, just present. When he left for the inn, he turned back once and asked her name again, as if he wanted to be sure he had it right. "Eira," she said. He nodded, satisfied. Then he walked away. She stood in the lane for a long moment after he had gone. She looked down at her hands. No extra frost, no spreading cold. She pressed her palms together and felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Warmth. Almost.
The carpenter said 2 days. It became 5. Soren did not seem troubled by this. He helped where he could, stacking firewood for the widow at the end of the lane, patching a fence for the miller, fixing a door hinge that had been sticking since the previous winter. He moved through the village with the relaxed usefulness of someone who had learned that the best way to pass time in a strange place was to make himself helpful. He and Eira fell into the habit of walking the frozen lake in the late afternoon, when the light turned gold and the ice made sounds like distant music shifting underfoot. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him about the mountain pass in spring, the way the whole valley turned green so suddenly it looked like someone had spilled paint across it. He told her about the northern lights he'd seen above the ranges, vast and green and silent, like the sky dreaming. Eira was careful. She kept the conversations light. She measured the distance between them like a cartographer mapping dangerous terrain. But Soren was the kind of person who paid attention. He noticed that she always walked slightly apart from others. He noticed that she deflected every question that pointed inward. He noticed that she laughed easily at small things, but went quiet and careful whenever a conversation threatened to become real. He noticed, and he didn't press. He simply kept showing up. And that, the simple, patient showing up, was the most dangerous thing of all. Because Eira had built her defenses against people who pushed. She had no defenses against someone who simply waited. The frost crept further each night, along her wrists, up toward her elbows. She soaked her arms in cold water, already cold, and watched it recede slightly, and told herself she was imagining it, and knew she wasn't. She stood at her mirror in the dark and made herself say it plainly. "He is leaving. He is a traveler. He does not belong here. Do not let this matter." But the heart, she was learning, is profoundly bad at following instructions. He came to tell her on the 5th evening that the cart was fixed. The sun was going down behind the mountains, painting the frozen lake in shades of amber and rose. They stood at the edge of the ice, and he said it simply, the way he said most things. "The wheel is done. He leaves in the morning." The silence that followed was the loudest Eira had ever heard. She said, without meaning to, "Then don't go." She heard herself say it. So did he. She turned away, mortified, and he said,
I think you meant that." And the gentleness of it was worse than any accusation. She tried to take it back. She said it didn't mean anything. She said she was only being polite. And then something in her simply broke open, the way ice breaks open in spring, not with violence, but with inevitability. And she turned back and held up her hand in the last light. The frost was past her wrist, past her elbow, climbing toward her shoulder in intricate, terrible patterns like frozen lace. She told him everything. She told him about her father coming home, about the cold spreading through her chest at 9 years old. She told him about the architecture of almost she had built around her life, about the careful mathematics of keeping love at the exact distance where it couldn't fully form. She told him she didn't understand it and had never understood it, but she knew what it ended in. She had felt it building toward an ending her entire life, cold and quiet and inevitable.
"I disappear," she told him. "That is what I am afraid of, not the cold itself, the disappearing." He stood very still through all of it. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look away. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment, and then he stepped forward and took her hand, cold as January stone, and held it. The frost impossibly began to retreat, just slightly, just a degree, just enough. She looked down at their joined hands and felt something shift in her understanding of herself, a small, seismic thing, like a single stone moving at the top of a mountain before an avalanche. She had always believed love was the thing that unmade her. She had never considered that perhaps she had only ever known the wrong kind. The storm came that night, as if the sky had been waiting for the right dramatic moment. The wind arrived first, a low, sustained howl from the northern pass. And then the snow came down in walls, not flakes, thick and blind and total. The village scrambled, shutters banged, lanterns guttered, animals were herded inside. Soren moved through the chaos without being asked. He helped the widow with her shutters. He helped Maren carry firewood from the shed before the drifts could bury it. He dug a path to the well for the family 3 houses down. He was everywhere and unhurried and competent, and Eira watched him from inside and felt the warmth rising in her chest like floodwater and the frost answering it like a tide. She went to the mirror. She could not hide from what she saw. The frost had reached her jaw, her neck. Her chest was pale and still as marble. She could see her own breath in the room, even standing next to the fire. She had never been this far along. She was genuinely afraid. Soren found her in the kitchen, arms wrapped around herself, and he saw her face in the firelight, the frost, the fear, and went still. He did not panic. He sat down across from her at the kitchen table, not beside her, not reaching for her, just present, just there. She told him he had to go. She told him that after the storm, he had to leave and not look back and not think about her, that the thinking itself was part of it, that being thought of with that kind of feeling was enough to continue what was already in motion. He said, "What if you're wrong?" She said she had lived this her entire life. He said she had lived it alone her entire life. And that, he said quietly, is not the same thing at all. The wind pressed against the windows. The fire crackled. Outside, the world was entirely white and entirely still in the way that only the deepest storms are still. Not peaceful, but total. And Soren simply stayed. He stayed, and he said, "Tell me what you're afraid of. All of it. Not the frost, not the disappearing. The thing underneath those things. Tell me what it actually is." And she opened her mouth to say, "I don't know," and instead heard herself say, "I am afraid that if someone truly knows me and loves me anyway, and I still disappear, then there is no hope for me at all." The frost on her jaw retreated 1 degree. It was not much, but it was real. The morning after the storm was the kind of morning that only comes after great violence. Perfectly still, perfectly white. The light coming off the snow so clean and bright it was almost painful to look at. Soren's cart sat at the edge of the village, loaded and ready.
He stood beside it. He had not left. Eira came to him with her scarf loose around her neck for the first time she could remember. The frost was still there, faint, present, real, along her wrists and at the hollow of her throat. She had not been miraculously cured in the night. She had not woken up warm. She was still what she was. But she understood it differently now. She told him what she had realized in the small hours of the morning, lying awake listening to the storm settle into silence. She told him she had spent her whole life believing that love was the cause of what happened to her. That being loved was the thing she needed to be protected from. But she saw now that she had been misreading the equation entirely. It wasn't love that froze her. It was being loved without being known. Every person who had ever loved her had loved a version of her, the quiet girl, the beautiful cold mystery, the distant and lovely and unreachable thing. They had loved an idea of her and poured that love over her like cold water, and her body had responded the only way it knew how, by becoming what they saw, by becoming the cold, distant, unreachable thing they had already decided she was. But last night, Soren had sat across from her in a storm and asked her to be ugly and frightened and confusing and real. And she had been all of those things. And he had stayed. And she had not disappeared.
Not even a little. Soren listened to all of this without speaking. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, looking at the mountains, and then he turned to her and said simply, "So what do you want to do about that?" She said she didn't know. She had never had the option before. He held out his hand. She looked at it for a long moment, this ordinary, open hand, extended in the cold morning air, asking nothing except to be taken. She took it. Frost. Cold. Still her. But not climbing, not retreating. Just present. Just honest. Just real. She looked back at the village, at her mother standing in the doorway across the lane, watching. Marin's face held everything at once, the grief of letting go and the peace of knowing it was right. She nodded once, slowly. Eira turned back. She unwrapped her scarf, just slightly. The cold air touched the frost at her throat, and she did not flinch. She picked up her bag. She walked with him toward the road, toward the pass, toward whatever came next. She was still cold. She suspected she always would be. But cold, she was beginning to understand, was not the opposite of warmth. It was simply a different kind of honest. And Soren, it turned out, was made of patience. And patience is the only fire that doesn't burn cold things away.
They say some people are born in the wrong season, but perhaps that is not quite right. Perhaps some people are simply born as themselves, fully, completely, without apology, and the world spends a long time catching up to them. Eira was made of winter. She would always carry frost in her bones and cold in her hands, and the particular stillness of deep snow in her chest. She would never be warm in the way that ordinary people are warm, but she would be known. And being known, truly, fully, ungently known, is the warmest thing there is. The frost never fully left her, but it never climbed higher than her wrists again. Some winters don't end. They simply find someone who knows how to live inside them. This has been The Girl Made of Winter, an original story. Thank you for listening.